Every year, these new dating terms come out, dating slangs, dating trends. After reading this and thinking that this is kind of silly on the surface, this says so much about the dating culture we're in today. Thank you so much for joining us again on Second Act TV. So happy to welcome back Robert Manni, the author of the Guys Guide to Love and host of Guys Guide Radio and TV. Robert, as always, thank you for joining me again.
My pleasure, Silka. Hope you're well and looking forward to having a fun conversation.
Oh, I think this is going to be a fun and informative conversation. As every year these new dating terms come out, dating slangs, dating trends. And I thought we covered them all on this channel already. And then I ran across this article. It's basically, as it says, your internet dating slang terms you need to know for 2023. And these are highlights. We're going to go over highlights from 72 dating glossary terms. Now, why is that important? After reading this and thinking that this is kind of silly on the surface, this says so much about the dating culture we're in today.
Yeah, it was a real eye-opener when I read through them. You sent me the article last night that there was so many terms for, as we discussed, kind of off camera, a lot of bad behavior that seems to be commonplace and accepted now. And that was the real surprise for me, because I felt like, oh, are we in a different generation in terms of how we look at dating versus what's going on now? I think it's worth talking about so everybody's aware as to what is actually happening right now out there.
Here's something that, I think we should be aware of, especially if we're getting back out there dating, a text relationship. That this is something new. We didn't have this 30 years ago, but that people actually develop a chemistry or sexual tension writing or texting versus ever getting together in real life. Talk to me about that.
I think it happens because it's another way of communicating. You have phone, in the past you had a phone call and then you meet somebody, and now you've got email and you've got texting and sexting and everything else. So you can flirt by texting, and that doesn't mean it's going to turn into anything beyond that, or maybe it will, but it's real and it happens. And with emojis, with the eggplant and the water and everything else, anything goes.
It's funny that you bring that up, because there's two emojis that they say we absolutely have to be aware of, and you may not be. And one is the eggplant, which is very suggestive. And then the other, as you said, is the droplets. So I guess even maybe you know what that means. The eggplant.
And then I know what it means.
And then the droplets signifies, what happens during sexual activity. So if somebody sends that to you, or you do it by accident or on purpose, just know what you're communicating.
Yeah. And if you, I don't know how you could send an eggplant by accident. So.
I know it's what they said here, that, when have you ever sent an eggplant because you wanted to communicate eggplant?
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was funny. Here's one that I absolutely love that kind of goes along with this. BDE. Now, I haven't heard that term. What I've heard is big hat, no cattle. But BDE, big dick energy. And we're not talking about the size or looks necessarily at all, but the energy of not being boastful or bragging or whatever. Explain. I think this is a really important point. Talk to me about that.
Well, I think it's more something that a woman picks up on. So it's hard for a guy to really explain it. But I think what it is, it's something that's been around forever. And that is that charisma and that sexuality, that some people give off a sexual vibe more than others. And I guess it doesn't work universally, but for some people, they pick up on it and like, wow, he's sexy or she's sexy, or I'm drawn to them. And that's what BDE is, I guess. I know it became popular with Pete Davidson, and everybody was been talking about how does this guy get all these dates, and is it his kindness or laid backness, or is he well hung, or whatever it is. But that term came out around him. He's kind of the poster boy for
Mhm.
BDE.
Yeah, what I love about it is that we get so many comments about that the women just want, guys that are tall and good looking and blah, 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 and that excludes 80% of us. It isn't true. This is now even the younger people have named this
Yeah.
that it's a confidence that exudes that transcends all that.
Yeah.
And that can be developed. And anyway, I just thought that was super, super interesting. I wanted to bring that up. And I'll link to the article. You can read all about it or even look more into this. But that is actually an encouraging trend, if you will, that I don't know, you could do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's new though. I mean, Silka, I think it's something that, some guys have it more than others. And the same thing with women. Some women exude sexuality more than other women do. And I don't mean by just putting it out there, just it's a natural thing that they're sexy. And I think a lot with guys, he's like, how does this guy get the women and put money and power aside? There's a vibe. Not
Yeah, I
something.
agree with you that it's not new. What's new is that there's a term for it.
Yep.
That there's a term for it that you now focus on, and you either develop or reject it. As with all these, there are now terms focused on behaviors that we need to know about, whether we're doing it or we're doing it to somebody else. So that's
Yeah.
what I meant by that. Well, here's another term that people I hadn't heard it. It's been around for a bit, but fubbing. I actually want to do a whole segment with you on that. Let's talk about fubbing.
Okay, well, fubbing is when you're paying too much attention to your phone, basically, instead of the person you're interacting with. For instance, if you and I were having this conversation, I kept checking my phone, it can be annoying. So for people who are dating, what's the most annoying thing that can happen? You go out on a date, maybe it's a first date, and the other person either puts their phone right there next to their plate, which you realize that means if they're going to be checking their phone, or they're just flat out checking their phone throughout the entire conversation. And this is so widespread, it's so ubiquitous that even couples in committed relationships are being tested by this fubbing phenomena because we all get addicted to our phones. And it's something that really has to be dealt with on an individual basis.
Obviously it's so annoying when somebody
Yeah.
brings a phone to to a date, and we get comments on that all the time too. Well, what I didn't know, and this is why I thought another segment, but let's just talk about it here, is that this has an effect on your mental health. It
Yeah.
destroys relationships. They've done all kinds of studies on this, how people, how you just make somebody feel horrible, like a low priority when you're doing this.
No, it's yeah, absolutely self-esteem and is affected because you're like, hey, don't I count? I'm already in second place to some mystery going on your phone. I don't belong. It's just not a good thing. So people, and particularly daters, need to be really careful as to putting the phone aside. And what do you do then when somebody else is fubbing you? I mean, how do you bring it up in a way where you want to be clear, but you don't want to get into an argument about it because obviously the other person is going to be usually defensive about it. So I would suggest, if we want to get into this, if you do have to take a call or you're going to have to check something, say, can I put my phone out because I'm going to have to check on something that's coming in from my office or whatever, but I don't mean to be rude. And then you put it there, and then you have an excuse at least for your fubbing. But the best behavior would be if you don't have to check your phone, where you really want to stand out. Don't take out your phone during the date, particularly your first date, and just make it like, this is my priority right here across the table from me. Let's get to know each other. And I think you score some big points.
I think it's a huge topic, and like I said, it now proven to destroy relationships, and we need to be more aware of that, what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now, what would be a problem if you didn't take out your phone would be one of the things they mention here, and that is the emergency call.
Mm.
Again,
Oh.
this is something that was named. We actually did have that in our day, or you gave somebody
Yeah.
the number to the restaurant or something, that if you absolutely, oh my God, I got to get out of here, just call me.
Right.
uh,
If you're not interested in the person, to me, and I've been in a situation where, like, hey, I'm not into her, but you share a cup of coffee, get through the cup of coffee, because this is another, in my opinion, this is another human being,
mhm.
and she's taken her time and got dressed up to get to know me here, and she's here, she showed up, so I'm going to show up for that cup of coffee or that glass of wine, whatever, and then you go your separate ways. But
Mhm.
I'm not into, if somebody's going to be rude or they feel uncomfortable, they want to pull the emergency call thing. I don't know. Anybody can do what they, has to work for them. If you can't find uh, the Elon to be able to end a date, a first date, in a way that makes everybody feel like, okay, it's not working, but I don't hate you and there's nothing wrong with you. You should be able to do that without
Mhm.
pulling out the emergency call. But if you need to do that, that's what you need to do. So I've never done that. I feel just, it's another human being. Put in the extra 5 minutes, drink quicker, get the check, and leave, and go
Yeah.
your separate ways. And try to be kind. I guess that's the main thing, because if you're over 15, you have to do the emergency call thing. I mean, come on. At that point, you should be
Yeah.
able to know how to like gracefully make an exit.
I agree with you. I find it interesting that that came up, that because yeah, we absolutely had that on some level, and that this is considered, a trend, or something we need to know about now. Speaking of staying on phones and the texting technology, this was interesting too, that it came up. Left on read, and what they mean by that you send a text. Well, are you familiar? Of course you are, with read reply or read.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're texting. If anybody's confused, like I am, you texting someone, and then you're waiting for a reply, whatever it is. Well, the person has their read receipts on, and you get that. So they saw the text, but they don't reply. You never hear anything. That's a horrible feeling.
Well, I mean, it's the old saying, like, she's just not that, or he's just not that into you. So you have
Mm-hmm.
to take it for what it is. And sometimes that's a gift. Is it rude? It depends. Did you just make a comment or did you ask a question? So maybe they read it and that was the end of the conversation. Or if you ask them a question and just put it on read, that means this is where their way, they either forgot, or they're just telling you in their own way, I'm not interested in you. You're not a priority. And a
Yeah.
lot of these games that people play with the phones and stuff that was in these articles, it's about control,
Mm-hmm.
how to take the control position and manipulate the other person. And it just makes people feel not good about themselves. So I'm not into those type of games.
No, I totally agree. And I think the biggest lesson here is just don't send read receipts. I mean, I can that can just,
Yeah.
why do you have to let people know when you read? Do they really need to know? I mean, maybe in some business situations or
Right.
something,
Yeah.
but on personal, I never have my read receipts on. There's so many more. We're starting to come to the end already. One that I think totally applies, the DTR conversation. So many of these trends or dating terms or slangs are around the different types of relationships that are now out there. And I do encourage you to read this. You might be
Yeah.
shocked. So the DTR conversation, defining the relationship, that you do that at the right time, meaning not too soon, but not too late either. What's your input on that?
I think it's more, and to take this with all due respect, I think a lot of times women are more interested and they have to have a definition as to what are we, where guys will
Mhm.
kind of roll along, and as long as they're having sex, they're pretty cool with it. If you have to have that to define the relationship, then I think often it becomes the woman's interest in, like, okay, what are we doing here? So it's the talk. And it's just another way of saying that. So you have to be able to bring that topic up at a certain point. If you're feeling like he's just using me or he's calling me when he wants to get, what,
Mhm.
then it's up to you. You have to call it and say, hey, what are we doing here? And however you express that, just be clear. But if you feel you're being taken advantage of, you want to find out sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. But yeah, you want to know. And you're right. I think women want to know more so than men. Again, I'm interested to hear the comments, but it is nice to know where you stand and what, if, for lack of a better word, what the rules or expectations are, of the relationship. So
Yeah.
lots to think about. We didn't even get to
Right.
some of the other stuff, the benching and haunting and submarine. I mean, really,
Ghosting and right, yeah. So all of it, and
really
breadcrumbing, and yeah.
yeah, exactly. And again, what I find most interesting is that we are naming bad behavior. And for me, the benefit in that is that we do focus on it, and hopefully we can recognize it if it's happening to us. Because if you're out there dating, online or not, that can all happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can happen to you now. I'll let you
Yeah.
close, Robert.
Well, I mean, these are all clever terms, and they are clever and very funny for what's basically manipulative bad behavior. So as long as we're aware of that, we're putting a fun. The negative part of it is almost like an acceptance, but
Mm-hmm.
there is an honesty in it. Is that like, okay, let's be realistic. This stuff
Mm-hmm.
goes on, and it's been going on since the beginning of time. Technology has just added little wrinkles to it, but the bottom line is, to be kind and to be open and to be honest without do your best to not hurt the other person's feelings if you're not interested. And if you are interested, let them know too, because people love to get positive feedback. And I don't think
Yeah.
there's enough of that going on where people say, "Hey, I really like being with you, and let's
Mm-hmm.
let's let's get together more." There's all this like game playing going on that's probably not necessary, and that's where a lot of these terms and these names, these clever names for these behaviors come in because it's game playing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Robert, thank you for your time as always. I will link to all of your information, to your book, to your radio show, which is now on UK Health Radio.
That's right.
You're everywhere. So I will yeah, I'll see you next time, and we'll have another great conversation here on Second Act TV.
You got it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Silka.